Hey everybody, welcome to the Conscious Love Show. Whether you are single, you are in a relationship, or you're healing a broken heart, this show is here to inspire you, to remind you how beautiful, lovable, and amazing you truly are, and to give you the practical tools and insights to navigate from wherever you are right now to the loving relationship that you so deeply want to have. My name is Shane Kohler. I'm a certified transformational coach and trainer with over a decade experience helping people release their trauma and open their hearts to love. I've delivered seminars all over the world, coached thousands of people through my online platforms and programs, and every week I'm coming straight to you with the hottest insights and the best teachers around, bringing you powerful resources and profound conversations to heal your relationship with love, dating, and yourself. I'm so grateful you're here, and if it's your first time, welcome. You can count on me to always show up for you with my very best and a commitment to learn and grow myself so I can serve you to my maximum ability. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. I've got some awesome things planned for you today. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Conscious Love Show podcast. Shane Kohler on with you today. Pleasure as always, and happy to be here. Looking forward to diving into today's episode. So today I'm speaking about the secret that every high-value woman knows about masculine energy. And this is going to be a polarity conversation. So if you've never heard me speak about polarity before, I think you're really going to enjoy this. But what we're going to talk about are the actual principles of masculine energy and feminine energy and the way in which these energies interact with each other and complement and work together or work against each other, because that's a way that it happens as well. But if you've never heard me speak about this, I think you'll really enjoy it. And especially if you're tired of a lot of the surface level interpretations of this that you'll hear on social media from a lot of influencers. And I say this because there are a lot of people talking about this, but a lot of them really have no idea what they're talking about. They haven't really understood or digested what these principal energies really are. It's become a very trendy thing to talk about. It's become something that a lot of people talk about from a very surface level. Oh, if you're a feminine woman, you'll attract a masculine man. And yeah, that's kind of true in a very basic sense with absolutely no nuance. But today I really want to talk about how these energies actually work. And I just want to start by naming kind of the origin of these ideas, because this is not a social media trend. This is not a new age philosophy. These principal ideas of masculine and feminine energy are thousands and thousands of years old. They have teachings rooted in Tantra, and not the hypersexualized Tantra that you'll also hear about on social media, but real Tantra, which is a deep spiritual practice that has so much more to it than just having a bunch of orgies. So, Tantra is much bigger than most people even realize it is. But these are tantric teachings. There are also elements of this in Taoism, in yoga philosophy, even many indigenous traditions like native traditions in the Americas and other places have versions of this in their core philosophy. And the polarity teachings about masculine and feminine energy aren't even about people or gender inherently. Now, because people are part of nature, that applies to people and it applies to our relationships, but these are not energies that are inherent in human beings. These are energies that are inherent in all of existence. So I just want to start with that. Let's start to think about this in a broader sense of what masculine energy is and feminine energy is. It doesn't really have anything to do with man or woman or male or female. This is the dance of creation. It is literally the way that existence itself dances in order to bring about the reality that we're living in. And so I want to give a few examples that have nothing to do with man or woman or gender, just so you can start to understand how these principles are at play in the universe. And let me start by saying that masculine energy is structure. This is why the masculine is considered to be a protector or a provider, because protecting and providing offers structure, it offers safety, it offers a container. Feminine energy is flow. Feminine energy is receiving what the masculine offers. So if the masculine is providing, the feminine receives what is being provided. The masculine creates a container, and because there is a safe, structured container, the feminine can freely flow within that container. So let me just give you a couple examples. Think about how the solar system is structured. You have the sun at the center of the solar system, and the sun is traditionally considered to be a masculine force, right? So the sun is oriented at the center of the solar system, and it has this massive gravitational pull that has planets that are millions of miles away orbiting around it because of this massive gravitational pull. Okay, the sun and its gravity is a structure that pulls the entire solar system into existence, into orbit, into structure. Because of the structure that the sun offers, and because of the place that the earth is positioned within that structure, life on earth can actually exist. Right? It's because of the structure that the sun provides that all of the flow that is occurring on planet Earth right now, all of our people and our mountains and our valleys and our water and our trees, and all of this exists in the way it does because of the structure that the sun offers. Right? So you can think about sun masculine, earth feminine. Earth is flowing around the sun. It's flowing within the structure that the sun provides. And because of this relationship between masculine sun, feminine earth, the earth can flow and exist in the way that it does because of the structure that's provided, right? So I hope that's clear. And it's kind of like that spiritual principle, as above, so below, right? So this is happening on every level, right? Yeah, the earth is feminine in relationship to the sun. But then if you think about a mountain, which is earth, well, earth is a masculine structure in that relationship, right? So a mountain is a masculine structure. It's offering structure, it's stillness, it creates the conditions that things can grow on it. Things can exist within the context that is mountain, right? So when you think about a waterfall flowing down a mountain, the waterfall is feminine. The mountain creates the structure through which the waterfall or the river or whatever it is can exist. It can flow down the mountain. If the mountain wasn't there, the waterfall couldn't exist. So the mountain creates structure so that the waterfall can even exist, so that the water has a place to flow through. I want to give you one more example. Let's look at the smallest parts of reality. Let's look at the atom, the structure of an atom. Right? Which an atom is literally the building block of existence. So I'm not really in a body. I'm in a collection of atoms held together through electromagnetic relationships that are moving around each other at incredible speeds that give the appearance of a body. It's really just these energetic components that are operating together through these electromagnetic relationships. All of this is polarity. Right? The way that atoms bond to each other, the way that they build, the way that these energetic components literally create our reality, that's all polarity. It's the magnetism. But if we look at the structure of an atom, you have a positive charge in the nucleus, which is the proton, and you have a negative charge in the electron cloud swirling around the nucleus. Generally, in these polarity teachings, positive charge is considered masculine, negative charge is considered feminine. That doesn't mean that masculine is good and feminine is bad, so don't confuse this with positive and negative in that sense. But a positive charge is active, a negative charge is inactive, right? So the electrons orbit around the nucleus of the atom because they are kind of drawn into that gravitational pull, much like the Earth is to the sun. Right? So there's a polarity relationship there between the nucleus of the atom, the active component of the atom, and the electromagnetic relationship of the electrons swirling around the outside of that. And these collections of atoms that bond with each other and form molecules that form literally the reality we live in. It's all just energy organizing itself through polarity, through electromagnetic relationship. So I want to give these examples because I want to broaden the conversation that polarity is not about men and women. It's not about gender. These are the principles of nature, and they exist in everything. And because they exist in everything, they also exist in human beings. We have masculine and feminine energy within us. And we could say that the male body is a masculine archetype. We could say that the female body is a feminine archetype, right? So the masculine body tends to be bigger, tends to be stronger, tends to be more muscular, and it tends to be structured in a masculine way. The feminine body tends to be soft, curvier, rounder. She produces life inside of her, right? So there's the womb that nurtures life. So the feminine body is literally a feminine ecosystem. The masculine body is literally a masculine ecosystem. But even within these individuals, men have masculine and feminine energy, and women have masculine and feminine energy. Right? So just because you inhabit a masculine or a male body or a female body doesn't mean that you only have one energy. And I mean, this is obvious, right? I don't need to prove this to you. I mean, you think about the traditional kind of gay man archetype, who is a very feminine man inside a masculine body. And not all gay men are feminine, right? So it's interesting. Like there are some gay men who are very masculine. And typically, even in gay relationships, you'll have a more masculine person and a more feminine person. And they tend to partner with each other, even though they're both in a male body or they're both in a female body. The magnetism that's created between them is because one is more masculine and one is more feminine. That's where the attraction lies. And between men and women, it in many ways works the same way, right? You have a more masculine partner being magnetically attracted to a more feminine partner. The same way the gravitation of the sun pulls the earth into orbit, right? The earth is inactive, the sun is active, and the inactive part is pulled into orbit around that active part. That's the magnetism, that's the charge, that's the polarity. So at this point in the conversation, what I want you to take away so far is that polarity is not about gender. These are principles of nature. And they exist on every level. So just like the earth is feminine in relationship to the sun, well, the earth is masculine in relationship to the water that's moving through the earth, right? So on every level, there's this energetic relationship happening between masculine and feminine energy. And in many, many ways, this does define the relationships that we have, especially romantic relationships. And so when some influencer on social media says, if you're a really feminine woman, you're going to attract a really masculine man, that's partially true. That's partially true, but there's nuance here. Because I want to start by saying this. Every individual has, as I said, masculine and feminine energy. And for each individual, there tends to be one that dominates. And you can have a female body, but have dominant masculine energy. You can have a male body and have dominant feminine energy. So just because you're living inside of a masculine archetype doesn't mean that your energy is going to match that. You could also be a very feminine man, but not necessarily be gay. Right? So this is actually completely unrelated to sexual orientation as well. You could be a very masculine man and be gay, right? So it has nothing to do with sexual orientation. This is energy, it's expression. But to keep it simple, if we make it about relationships between men and women, a masculine man is going to polarize. There's going to be a magnetic polarity between a masculine man and a feminine woman. If you take two magnets, a positively charged magnet and a negatively charged magnet, some of you probably did this in science class when you were in high school. A positively charged magnet and a negatively charged magnet will suck together really powerfully, right? There's magnetism between them. But if you take two positively charged magnets and put them together, they actually repel each other. Right? So again, that's another example of these principles taking place in the natural world. And it's true that a woman who is deeply rooted in her masculine energy with no flexibility is going to repel masculine men, and she's going to attract feminine men. That is true. And the opposite of that is also true, right? A woman in her feminine energy will attract masculine men, and she will repel feminine men. And I want to break down some of the nuances of this and some of the ways it plays out practically. But the first thing I want to name is this. Extreme sides of the spectrum. So we could say the extreme feminine or the extreme masculine. If you think of this like a spectrum, think of it like a line. Okay, and in the middle, you might have the balance point. The balance point is completely neutral. It's inert. Right? In an atom, you have protons in the nucleus, which are positively charged particles. And then you also have neutrons, which are neutrally charged particles, right? They're inert. They have no charge. So that's like the neutron, right? The balance point on the spectrum, the very center of the line, is where you have neutrality. There's no charge, zero charge. And then on one side of the line, you have masculine energy. On the other side of the line, you have feminine energy. And the way a lot of people break this down is that, well, if you're a woman and you want to attract a masculine man, then you need to be all the way out on the far side of the feminine spectrum, and you're going to attract a man who's all the way out on the far side of the masculine spectrum. And that's true, actually. In terms of magnetism, polarity, in terms of the way nature works, that's true. Here's what a lot of them don't realize about that. That's actually a toxic relationship. Some of you might be surprised that I'm saying that, because so much of the work about this is telling us that that's what a healthy relationship looks like, right? A really, really feminine woman with a really, really masculine man. But let me put it this way. The individuals who are operating on the far edges of the spectrum are the ones that are completely disconnected from the opposite energy. So a man all the way out on the far edges of the masculine spectrum has no connection to his own feminine. Now, how's he going to understand the feminine? How's he going to relate to the feminine when he's completely disconnected from it? The same is true for the woman all the way out on the far edges of the feminine spectrum. How's she going to relate to the masculine when she has no connection to it? How's she going to understand it? She won't. So these relationships have charge. They have magnetism. There can be a lot of chemistry. They can be highly magnetic. They can be super intense, and the kind of thing that we stay up all night thinking about, and it's almost like that crazy chemistry in our body. But that's not healthy, actually. Now, I want to go into some of the details about how these dynamic works. But first, I want to say this. These principles apply to every relationship. I said earlier that even in a homosexual relationship, you will typically have one person who's more masculine, another person who's more feminine, right? So this is nature. It's literally nature in action. It's working 100% of the time in all relationships. But for the purposes of today's conversation, so I can keep it simple and I can clarify these principles, I'm going to talk about it as though women are feminine and men are masculine. And just know that as I'm giving these examples in a simplified framework to understand it, know that women can also be masculine and men can also be feminine, right? Know that you can have two same-sex people who are in a relationship with each other and they can be masculine and feminine, and like it works for everyone all the time. Okay, let me just say that. But I want to be able to describe these principles in a way that's actually digestible and understandable. And in order to do that, we need to simplify. So let's talk about the hyper feminine woman in relationship with the hyper masculine man. And I already said that's toxic, right? That's a wounded relationship. That's a trauma bond. Now let's talk about the trauma of each of them, because this is something important to say, is that when a woman only has access to her feminine energy, she's completely feminine. When a man only has access to his masculine energy, he's completely masculine. These individuals are traumatized because that is a piece of who they are, not all of who they are. So they have actually fragmented themselves. They have disconnected from a whole other part of themselves and retreated into a certain energetic expression that maybe feels safe or familiar to them. So a lot of the influencers or coaches out there who are talking about this stuff are going to tell you, you need to be in your feminine all the time. If you want to attract a masculine man, you need to be more feminine. This is the secret that I'm getting at in today's episode. It's not about being more feminine all the time. It's about being able to step into your feminine and be conscious of it while being connected to your masculine, actually. And I'm going to explain this as we go along today. So, what is the trauma of the woman who is completely in her feminine? Let's start there. She is afraid to be assertive, which is a masculine quality. She's afraid to create boundaries, which are structure, which is a masculine quality. She's afraid to ask for what she wants or claim what she wants, because that's a masculine action. She has an inability to be independent because the feminine is naturally in relationship, right? Like the earth couldn't sustain itself without the sun. The feminine has to be in relationship with the masculine. So if she's completely in her feminine, she's inherently codependent. So what an ultra feminine woman does in relationship to men is, as I said, she's codependent. She's needy. She has no structure. She has no boundaries. She has no ability to assert herself, to ask for what she wants, to claim what she needs. A hyper feminine woman does attract a hyper masculine man. That part is true. What most people won't tell you is that man is going to dominate her. He is going to control her. She is going to be an object to him. And what ends up happening to her is she ends up living in a kind of prison in her relationship. And she defaults to resentment, victimhood, manipulation, right? Because she can't hold her own structure, she seeks it in men, and she becomes dependent, emotionally dependent, financially dependent, energetically dependent. She allows herself to be dominated not because she loves submission, but because she doesn't have the strength, which is masculine, to stand on her own. And so from that disempowered place, she uses the only tools that she feels she has left: resentment and manipulation. She doesn't ask directly for what she needs. She schemes for it. So she punishes, she withholds, she guilts, because she believes she doesn't have the right to lead or ask. Now, what does so much of the teaching out there say? It says, you need to let your man lead. Well, maybe, unless he's leading you off a cliff. That's when you need to step in and say, I'm not walking off a cliff. So the feminine completely divorced from the masculine is a toxic expression of the feminine. When a woman has no access to her inner masculine, her strength, her security, her assertiveness, her willingness to take charge of a situation when necessary, she is weakened, she is disempowered in relationship with the masculine. He has no respect for her. She becomes an object to him. And yes, a woman who lives like this will attract a man who is the equal and opposite reflection of this. And I don't really have to explain this to you. Don't we see it all the time? How many disempowered women do we see that are married to toxic, abusive, controlling men? And what do? They guilt, they withhold, they punish, they manipulate. They talk shit about their husband behind his back. But they won't say it to his face. They won't challenge him. They won't leave him because they can't be without him. So they just get petty and resentful and manipulative. And those are the toxic expressions of the feminine. Now let's talk about her equal and opposite counterpart, the hyper-masculine man, the macho man. He is controlling, he is dominating, he is forceful. He is self-centered, so he takes what he wants with no regard for who he's taking from. The patriarchal systems of our world are this version of toxic masculinity, right? One of the greatest examples I see is the way that we've just taken from the environment without ever considering giving anything back, right? We just use the resources of the world. We pump all the oil and we cut down all the trees and we just take and take and take from the environment with no consciousness that, hey, maybe we need to replenish what we're using here. That's a great metaphor for how the toxic masculine operates in the world. Domination, force, control, self-centeredness, with no consciousness of what we're consuming. And this is what the hyper-masculine man does in relationship. So as I said earlier, a woman becomes an object to him. He dominates her. He controls her. Extreme expressions of this would be literal physical abuse, right? He beats her. But even when there's not literal physical abuse, there are often these power dynamics. He financially abuses her. You know, I want to speak into this for a moment because a lot of women have this fantasy of like, I want a man who pays all my bills and takes care of me. And I'm like, respectfully, ladies, that is a stupid thing to want. Now, let me contextualize this. If you're in a relationship with a man that you deeply trust and you feel deeply safe and loved by this man, and the two of you are in a real partnership with each other, and maybe you're raising a family, and you say, hey, you go to work and earn the money so I can stay home and raise the kids, and that's a dynamic that works for the two of you, that's beautiful. That's not an unequal power dynamic. That's an alliance. That's a partnership. You're consciously choosing that, not just for yourselves, but for your family. But if you're sitting around hoping that a man is going to come into your life and just pay all your bills, what you're literally doing is you're subjecting yourself to financial abuse. Now he puts the roof over your head. He puts the food on your plate. He pays all your bills. You literally can't exist without him. And now even if he beats the shit out of you and you need to leave, you can't because you have nowhere to go. He controls every aspect of your life. But again, that's another aspect of the toxic feminine. I don't want to be self-sustaining. I want to be dependent. That's giving away your power. As I get into the secret that every high-value woman knows about masculine energy, part of it is that she holds the masculine space for herself until a man has earned the right to hold it for her. So she's not just some ultra feminine woman floating around in the world hoping a man's going to save her. She is actively holding the masculine space in her life until a man shows up that makes her feel safe enough to surrender it. And then she can let go and she can relax and she can trust and she can let him lead, not because he's a man, but because he has shown her that it's safe for him to do so. So the hyper-feminine woman will be controlled and dominated by the hyper-masculine man. He will consume all of her power, and she will be forced into resentment, victimhood, and manipulation to get what she wants from life. It's a pretty bitter existence for both of them. Because what he's disconnected from is the empathy that makes love even worthwhile. Right? They're both just starved. And what we have here, and like you can, again, how many women do we know that are married to men like this? How many men do we know that are dominating women in this way? Like you can see this if you just look around in the world. It's happening all the time. And what this is a man who feels so insecure with his own sensitivity that he shut it down, which is trauma. A woman who feels so insecure with her power that she will never claim it, which is trauma. So we have two traumatized individuals finding their equal and opposite energetic expression and bonding to them. That's a trauma bond. Now let's talk about the inverse of this, the hyper masculine woman and the hyper feminine man, because you see this a lot too. And it works the same way, right? So the hyper masculine woman is going to naturally attract a hyper feminine man. Once again, these are trauma responses. Okay, so who is the hyper masculine woman? She's the one, I don't trust men, I don't need a man, I'm a strong, independent woman, I've got it all together, no man is ever going to hurt me. And so she has these incredibly strong walls built against the masculine. Or maybe it's more accurate to say against men. And she lives almost entirely in masculine energy. So masculine energy, again, is structure, power, strength, protecting, providing. Now, this is a woman who has likely been hurt by men. Maybe it was her father. Maybe it was her ex-husband. Maybe it was her boyfriend. Maybe it was her brothers. Maybe it was other men, bosses, or other men in the world that she's interacted with. It could also be a woman, this is very common for women actually, who were forced into a parental role at a young age. So maybe she raised her younger siblings. The parents left her in charge of the house at 10 years old, and she raised her younger siblings. So in a parent-child relationship, the parent is masculine, the child is feminine. Right? That's the balance there. So the child is receptive to what the parent provides. That puts the child in a feminine position and the parent in a masculine position. So often hypermasculine women were parentified at a young age. They learn the only way I survive into this world is by being a protector and a provider. This learning gets wired into their nervous system. They literally cannot step out of their masculine because they only ever feel safe in the role of protector and provider. Now, what are her relationships with men going to be like? She's going to find men who basically end up being another child she has to take care of. And once again, look around. How often do we see this happening? A woman who works hard, pays all the bills. She's a badass woman. She's killing it in the world. And she's with some... I wasn't going to say this word, but I'm just going to say it. She's with some loser. Someone who offers nothing. She comes home from work and he's sitting there eating Cheetos and playing video games. Why is she with him? Because she doesn't want to be alone. But he's the only kind of man that can exist in her space. Because going back to the magnet analogy, right? If you take two positively charged magnets and try to push them together, they literally repel each other. A masculine man in relationship with her is going to literally be repelled by him. He can't exist in that relationship. She needs a man who will be feminine in relationship with her. And we see this all the time. Super brilliant, talented, successful, capable women in long-term relationships with fucking losers who offer nothing and are basically another child she needs to take care of. And to any of the men who hear this and identify with that, I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but respectfully, man up. Provide for yourself. Don't let a woman provide for you. That doesn't mean she can't be your partner. It doesn't mean that you can't build a life together. But bring your part to the table. Let me put it that way. Bring your part to the table. Don't just sit back and collect. So these are the two possible expressions when we're operating on the far sides of the spectrum. Hypermasculine and hyperfeminine, whether it's a man or a woman in either position. These are how relationships look on these far edges of the spectrum. So when someone tells you that you need to be hyperfeminine if you want to attract a masculine man, don't buy it. Hyperfemininity is weakness. And so is hypermasculinity. So there's something in my work. This is a term I got from A Course in Miracles, and anybody who listens to the podcast, you've probably heard me mention A Course in Miracles a time or two. A Course in Miracles is a profound spiritual teaching. It's something that I was first introduced to over a decade ago. I've been deeply studying it for the last 10 years. It's not a religion, like you can't go to a Course in Miracles church, but if I were to say I have a religion, that would be my religion, right? Like that is the spiritual framework through which I understand life. And the holy relationship is something that A Course in Miracles talks about. And I want to separate this from any religious context because the holy relationship has nothing to do with religion. You don't have to be Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or anything in order to have a holy relationship work for you. It's something that every individual can have regardless of religious orientation. But to make it really simple, the holy relationship is a relationship based in wholeness. So if you'll remember earlier, I said that the hypermasculine man or the hyperfeminine woman, these are fragmented individuals. Same with the hypermasculine woman and the hyperfeminine man. These are fragmented individuals. They're individuals who through trauma, through pain, through suffering, have lost connection with a part of themselves. In the same way that hyper masculine woman can never let herself relax and receive, that hyper feminine man doesn't allow himself to be strong. So the holy relationship is a relationship based in wholeness. Now, what does that mean? It means two whole individuals existing in partnership with each other. So what is a whole individual? A whole individual is an individual who has access to all of themselves, who is deeply embodied in the wholeness of who they are, not fragmented into a part of who they are, but deeply embodied in their wholeness. Now, this doesn't neutralize everything. You can still have a dominant orientation. Like my dominant orientation is masculine. I am a masculine man. My wife's dominant orientation is feminine. She is a feminine woman. Now, when our baby starts crying in the middle of the night and my wife gets up to feed her, she's got to step into her masculine. She's got to be the protector and the provider for that child. Our daughter is the feminine in relationship to my wife when she's taking care of her. But my wife also knows how to be feminine. My wife is not so compulsively caught up in the masculine that I don't feel like there's any space for me to exist in our relationship. Sometimes she gets a little carried away, and I got to say, hey, babe, I got this. Let me lead here. But that's what a whole relationship looks like. Now, me as an individual, even though my primary orientation is masculine, I have access to my feminine. That's why I can do the work that I do. So what does it mean? Let's talk about each of these. What does it mean for a man to be rooted primarily in his masculine energy, but be in touch with his feminine? And what does it mean for a woman to be rooted primarily in her feminine energy, but to be in touch with her masculine? So I'll start with myself. I'm a deeply empathetic person. I couldn't do the work I do if I didn't. So I have the ability to feel what other people are feeling. I can sit in an experience with someone and I can feel what that person is feeling. And I can extend love and compassion to them in that experience. That's a feminine quality. Right? Empathy is literally a quality that mothers develop because it's essential for childbearing and raising a child. It's a deeply feminine quality. But that doesn't mean men can't do it. But it's not part of the macho masculine archetype that men are conditioned to be from the time they're young boys. Empathy is considered soft. This is why so many men have such strong narcissistic traits. It's because they've learned that empathy is weakness, and empathy is the one thing that separates a narcissist from a whole human being. So it means I have empathy. It means I have compassion. It means I'm in touch with my emotions. Now, that doesn't mean I sit around and cry all the time. Actually, my wife has said this from the beginning. She's like, you never cry. Like, my wife has probably seen me cry like 4 times since we've been together. One was when my dog died. One was when my wife was diagnosed with cancer and we were getting ready for her treatment, and we literally sat in bed and like bawled our eyes out together. You know, if we're watching a particularly emotional movie or something, I might tear up a little bit and she might catch it and give me a little look. I'm in touch. I'm not ruled by it. So let me put it like this. My feminine qualities don't direct my energy. They don't dominate my energy, but they're also not foreign to me. I can feel deeply. I can connect with what other people are feeling, which is empathy. I'm in touch with my feminine. I can dance. Right? A lot of men won't dance. Right? They just pull up their pants and lean back. Now, if anyone catches that Fat Joe reference. But that song is funny because it's like that's like the toxic masculine. Like, oh, I'm too vulnerable, or I'm not vulnerable enough to dance and let myself move and expose myself in that way. I'll just lean back. So a man can be rooted in his masculine energy, but be in touch with his feminine. That gives him a bridge for connection with a woman. Now let's talk about a woman rooted in her feminine energy, but in touch with her masculine. And it's important that I make one point here as well. We live in a hyper masculine world, right? Like, our world is run on patriarchal systems. And yes, that's largely toxic and damaging and all of that. I'm not saying it's not, but it's also the reality we live in. So our world is run on patriarchal systems. If a woman is not in touch with her masculine and has access to her masculine in this world, she is going to get run over by life. That's important for the ladies listening. If you do not have access to your masculine, you are going to get run over by life. And this is maybe one of the biggest inequalities between men and women. A man can be completely disconnected from his feminine, and yes, he'll be a little hollow inside and not really fulfilled or happy and not deeply in touch with his emotions, but he'll get along okay in life because the world rewards hypermasculinity. But if a woman is completely disconnected from her masculine, she is going to get run over by life. The best that woman can hope for is a man who's going to protect her and take care of her, but also probably abuse her. But it might be a better situation than just being abused by the world every day. I don't know. It's kind of like pick your pain. What's worse? So because we live in a hyper masculine world, there's more of a tendency for women to be in their masculine than there is for men to be in their feminine. And this is why it's so common to see hyper masculine women. Now, for a woman to be rooted in her feminine, but in touch with her masculine, what does it mean? It means that every day she is going to have to step into her masculine many times. She's going to have to get up and go to work in the morning. She's going to have to do the dishes and clean the house and like take care of the logistics of her life. She's going to have to manage her finances. She's going to have to assert herself in difficult situations. She's going to have to create boundaries. She's going to have to speak her truth. Those are all masculine actions. These are actions that probably most women take every day. Now, the question becomes, how does that woman embrace her feminine in a hyper-masculine society, in a hyper-masculine world? And this is the secret that I'm pointing to today. I've mentioned it a couple times, but I want to state it clearly now. The secret that every high-value woman knows about masculine energy is that she can claim it, she can step into it, she can own it. But what's really going to just give her the juice of life, what's really going to make her feel so fulfilled is when she meets a man and she can put it down and just completely surrender into the feminine and let herself be held in the safe container of the masculine. That's where she's really going to find the juice of life. So she's in touch with her masculine. She can step into it when she needs to go to work, when she needs to pay her bills, when she needs to assert a boundary, when she needs to end an unhealthy situation in her life, walk away from a relationship. She can step into her masculine. But it's not compulsive. It's a conscious choice. So she might be getting up in the morning, going to work. Maybe she's, in a corporate situation, in a masculine dominated environment, and she's got to hold her own with these powerful men every day. And she's got to assert herself and create her boundaries. And a woman in that situation has to work 10 times harder than the men there, right? But then she comes home to her man and she kicks her feet up and she lets him rub her feet. Or she can let herself be held. She can soften. She can receive. She can sit down to a delicious dinner and just be completely in the present as she receives the meal. She's able to put down the weight of having to protect and provide and surrender into the present moment. So I've said the masculine is the energy that protects and provides. The feminine is the energy that receives and reflects. If we look at sex for a moment, the masculine penetrates the woman, the feminine receives. The male body penetrates, the female body receives. Right? This is a metaphor for energy. She can open herself and let herself be penetrated by the masculine. Yes, in the bedroom, but also in other areas of her life. She doesn't need to hold it all together. It's like she can just become a puddle on the floor, completely held, completely safe. She doesn't have to carry it all anymore. That's what the feminine energy is. The feminine energy is that part of us that puts it all down. For a moment, we stop thinking about what needs to happen tomorrow and the next day and our plans and our designs and all the structures of our life, and we allow ourselves to be structureless. We allow ourselves to surrender completely into the present moment, to what is right now, and be held by it. And the beautiful thing about a truly embodied woman, a woman who is truly embodied in her wholeness, is she can surrender to the masculine energy of a man because she knows that she can pick hers up anytime. And this is the most important part of what I'm saying today. When you are confident and secure in your masculine energy as a woman, you can put it down because you know that you can pick it up anytime. It's funny, there's an account I follow on Instagram. Some of you probably follow him too. His name's Taylor Love. He teaches about masculine men, right? He teaches women how to find masculine men. Now, he's one of these people, by the way, I think some of what he says is a little bit misinformed in terms of some of the things I'm talking about today. I don't agree with everything he says, but he says some good stuff. I find his videos kind of funny a lot of the times. He's funny and he challenges some things. I like him. He makes good content, entertaining content. I'll put it that way. But he made a video today and he was talking about how if you want a masculine man to approach you, and he was explaining the body language, like make eye contact and look down and away, make eye contact and look down and away. And he was like, what you're doing is you're actually being submissive. The feminine is submissive. So he's like, when you make eye contact and then you look down and away, if you stare a man in his eyes, you're challenging him. But when you look down and away and you smile, you're drawing him towards you. So you're being submissive, you're surrendering into the feminine. And then he said that you would turn your head a little bit and present your jugular to the man in the man's direction. And he's like, what you're doing is you're exposing a vulnerable part of your body, right? Which the jugular is like one of the most vulnerable parts of the human body. So you're exposing a vulnerable part of your body to him. You're being submissive and you're being vulnerable. And I said earlier, I don't agree with everything he said, but this is actually true. Because energetically, what you're doing is you're dropping into the feminine. You're being submissive. You're being vulnerable. There's a trust that you're establishing there that this man is going to provide for you. What I found really interesting was, I had to go read the comments to see what people thought about this. And some of the women in the comments were going, oh yeah, I'm just going to present myself so the predator can come eat me. Right? Or some of the women were saying like, a masculine man wouldn't need you to do this because he would just take charge. So these comments are revealing some very interesting things about the consciousness of women in our world. And here's the thing. Are you presenting yourself for the predator to come eat you? No. Because the moment he starts to be a predator, the moment he starts to be a threat, you can step right into your masculine energy and say, this doesn't work for me. Right? Would a masculine man just take over and take charge even though you're not being submissive in a relationship with him? Probably not. Because that's going to be like two magnets with the same charge pushing against each other. There's going to be a repulsion, not a magnetism. When you see a masculine man and you give submissive body language, there's something attractive in the sense that it literally magnetizes him. It literally activates his masculine instincts and draws him in. Now, there are lots of ways to do this. I'm not saying that you need to take the suggestions that were in that video, but his suggestions were correct. They weren't wrong. Our body language signals our energy. So this is the most important thing about it. It is only safe to be in your feminine when you are also connected to your masculine. I said this earlier, but I want to restate it. The most important thing for a woman is to claim the masculine space for herself until a man has earned the right to claim it for her. Now, I know that might sound counterintuitive because you're like, well, you're telling me to present my jugular to him, but he's a stranger. I don't know, like, if he's safe. Well, here's the thing. Because we did a deep dive on this topic in my Inspired Love group last week, and one of the ladies brought this up. She said, how can I be completely surrendered in my feminine with a man when I don't know if he's safe? And this is what I said to her. I said, well, you're not going to meet him alone one-on-one in a dark alley for your first date, right? And she's like, no, of course not. And I'm like, okay, so right there's a little bit of your masculine protector instinct, right? You're like, no, we're going to meet in a public place, well lit. I'm going to be able to get to my car and drive myself home if I need to. I'm going to create a condition around this date where I can exit at any moment if I need to. And because you have operated in your masculine in terms of creating the structure and creating the container for your safety, that gives you the freedom to show up in relationship with that man and completely surrender into your feminine. Right? If you're at the coffee shop and you're giving some submissive body language and exposing your throat to him, yes, you might be making yourself physically vulnerable for a moment, but you're also in a public place. You can also get up and leave anytime. If he does anything inappropriate, you can immediately assert a boundary and say, absolutely not, that doesn't work for me. Just because I was being submissive a minute ago doesn't mean I'm going to completely let you dominate me. And so it is your own masculine safety that creates the structure that lets you surrender into the feminine. And this is the practice, this is the space that a masculine man could actually step into. And I want to bring this part of it back as well. Because I said earlier, if you're on the far extreme of the spectrum, extreme feminine, you're going to attract extreme masculine. Maybe a better word for extreme is unbalanced, right? Unbalanced feminine is going to attract unbalanced masculine. Well, now let's imagine we have two people who are closer to the balance point. You may still have the man on the masculine side. You may still have the woman on the feminine side. But they're close enough that they can reach over and touch the other side. Right? They're close enough that the other side isn't foreign to them. They're not completely disconnected from it. They just have a primary energy that they tend to stand in. Well, now there's a bridge for connection. This is where the holy relationship lives. And the individual who stands in their primary energy, but is deeply in touch with that opposite energy, is going to attract a partner who's similar. And here's the beauty of it too, and this is something that a lot of the coaches and people on social media don't always talk about, because maybe it's not the sexiest thing to talk about. But there's nothing here to say that the man always needs to be in the masculine energy, or the woman always needs to be in the feminine energy. There might be times when the man wants to come home after a long day of work and kick his feet up and relax, and his wife might serve him a lovely meal that she cooked for him with love and devotion. And then he gets to receive. He gets to surrender into his feminine and let himself be taken care of. And that can be just as fulfilling for her to take care of her man, even though she's technically providing. There might be a time when he's going through a crisis in his life, like when my dog died, or when something happens, and he needs to break down and cry, and she can hold him. For that moment, he is surrendering into his feminine and letting himself be held. That can be a beautiful thing for a woman to hold that space for her man. But if he's breaking down and crying every single day and she's constantly holding space for him, well, now she's going to feel like there's no space for her to be in her feminine. And there's a lot of nuance here, especially when we get into homosexual relationships and different kinds of relationships. So I can't talk about every single possibility. But let me say, generally speaking, especially in heteronormative situations, the woman is going to be more fulfilled when she gets to be in her feminine in relationship with her man, most of the time. The man is going to be more fulfilled when he gets to be in the masculine in relationship with his woman, most of the time. Because stepping into and owning these energies, that's what makes him feel like a man. And that's what makes her feel like a woman. That doesn't mean they're trapped in that energy. That doesn't mean they can't move into the opposite energy when necessary. It just means that they get the life-affirming experience of owning the energy that feels like home to them. And so a holy relationship, which we could say for purposes of this conversation is synonymous to a conscious relationship. Maybe we could say the holy relationship is the highest possible expression of a conscious relationship. It's the standard that maybe we would all aspire to. A holy relationship consists of two whole individuals. Two people who are completely in touch with all of their energy, all of themselves. And then they can dance. Right? Dancing is actually a great metaphor for this, because if you look at like ballroom dancing, there's someone who leads and there's someone who allows themselves to be led. Typically, the man leads and the woman allows herself to be led. Although the woman could lead and the man could let himself be led. Sometimes that doesn't work as well because he tends to be bigger and stronger and able to hold the container better. But if a man and a woman step on a dance floor and they're both trying to lead, they're going to step on each other's toes. But if she surrenders and lets him lead, now he creates the structure, he creates the container, and she gets to flow within that container. So she can twirl, and he can lean her back, and he can spin her around, and she just gets to flow within the container that he's creating. That's such a beautiful metaphor for how this energy works in relationship. So what's the secret? The secret is that masculine energy is an asset to a woman. It's a skill. It's an essential requirement for her to earn a man's respect, for her to hold her own in relationship with a man, for her to have boundaries and standards that call a man forward. But when she's truly connected to the power of that energy, she can consciously surrender it so she can merge in partnership with a man. She can allow herself to be led, not because she can't lead herself, but because she wants to experience the joy of not having to. When she embodies this in partnership with a man, she's not being dominated by his power. She's surrendering into the trust that she has for him. And that action, her willingness to surrender into the trust that she has for him, is the greatest gift a woman can give a man. Allowing him to be the masculine presence in her life when he's earned it makes him feel like more of a man than anything else in the whole world. Underneath it all, this is what men crave to feel. All the sexual conquest and all of the power dynamics and the games and the anxious avoidant behavior and all of it, this is what men are really trying to feel through all of it. That he has a woman's complete trust, that she has surrendered to him, that she is allowing him to lead. And she knows at any time that if he starts leading her off of a cliff, she can stop and say no. In a way, she directs his leadership. The masculine thrives by seeking to meet the needs of the feminine. When she can express those needs and then surrender and let him provide for those needs, that gives the masculine direction and purpose, and it gives the feminine safety and structure. And this is maybe the greatest paradox of it all. And like I said, as above, so below, it's happening on every level. When a woman is surrendered into her feminine, in an interesting way, she's actually leading the relationship. But that could be a whole other topic. So I don't want to get too deep into that and confuse you, but I want to leave it at this. Masculine energy is not something to be avoided by women. It's something to be owned by women. And when you choose to put it down in relationship with a man, you honor him in the deepest way a woman ever could. So thank you for being with me today. Pleasure as always. Look forward to picking back up with you next week. Lots of love and blessings, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye. Thanks again for checking out the show. Please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on the most. And I would love it so much if you leave a review and tell people what you think of us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram @TheLivingRelationship to connect more closely. And I'm grateful to be supporting you on your journey to love.